In 1541, long before Oklahoma became a state, and long before there was a nation called the USA, Spanish explorers crossed the Oklahoma Panhandle, following rumors of wealth and gold.
They searched, I think, in many respects for some of the mythical areas that they had heard about, the seven cities of gold, the Gran Quivira, and things of that nature that seemed to lie to the north. But really they found relatively little that would inspire them other than very dry land. They found buffalo that were unlike anything they'd ever seen before. At times they encountered the wilds of Oklahoma weather with tornadoes and things of that nature, and ultimately pushed on all the way into central Kansas, where they finally found out that La Gran Quivira did not exist anywhere.
Sometime between the remote past and the industrial present, Spanish-speaking cowboys, vaqueros, also left their mark on the area.
As people moved into Oklahoma to begin to develop its resources here, you began to see that kind of intersection that brought, I think, maybe some of the most enduring elements of Spanish culture here and Mexican culture here, which is, as many people have pointed out, in the ranching. And most of the early cowboys were vaqueros, who brought with them, in a sense, their techniques of herding cattle, raising cattle. They brought with them, in some respects, the outfits that the vaqueros wore, with the sombreros and the chaparreras, the la rayata, cowboy culture. And I think very often we forget the connection. But of course, cowboy is nothing more than a translation of the Spanish term vaquero.
Spanish, it turns out, was the first European language spoken in what we now call Oklahoma. During the first decade of statehood, the vaqueros were followed by Spanish-speaking railroad workers, coal miners, and Catholic missionaries.
And as a result, the Carmelites, in many respects, began a kind of mission. They established a little mission church in Oklahoma City. They established La Virgen de Guadalupe church in Tulsa.
Their plans to build a large, magnificent Catholic church had to be scrapped in favor of a much smaller structure.
Continued antipathy of some people against Catholics was very strong. The Ku Klux Klan was very powerful here in Oklahoma. And not only present, but very powerful in the ranks of politicians. As a result, with all of those pressures, I think they modified rather considerably. But Little Flower Church did, of course, become the center of religious and cultural and charitable activity.
From as early as I can remember, our family traditionally attended Little Flower Church. Went to Spanish Mass from probably the time I was baptized, from the time I was an infant, going and seeing the beauty, annual carnival, and being able to just enjoying the food and enjoying the culture and everything else.
Latino frequent the Little Flower Church, along with scores of other Catholic and evangelical churches. Those who are newly arrived, like those who came over a century ago, take on the hardest jobs. The ones the locals don't seem to want.
Various kinds of employment, which is not so much different from the kinds of employment that they found in the 1910s and the 1920s, in jobs that citizens of the United States and Oklahoma didn't particularly care to do. Landscaping, in roofing, in construction, in things of that nature.
This is the town of Heavener, in the far eastern part of the state. From this vantage point, it is hard to picture the transformation and the turmoil the town has experienced. It all started with the arrival of a meat processing plant. Some local residents went to work, but many could not endure the harsh working conditions, and there was a labor shortage. At this point, migrant workers came in to fill the gap. Heavener experienced a revival, but a good number of locals resented the new situation. The stage was thus set for a conflict, a drama that would feature a divided town, police abuse, and the flight of more than half of the Latinos' population.
Oklahoma is a microcosm of the larger American culture and the American character. I come from Little Dixie, southeastern Oklahoma, where that southern culture is so strong. And so, yes, we are welcoming, give me your tired, your poor, and we are also build a fence, build a stronger fence, build an even stronger fence. But that paradox that's just who we are. It's, you know, some of the best people in the world and a mean streak a mile long, and both things are true. Hispanics have a long history, especially up in the panhandle of Oklahoma, where my uncle married a Mexican woman whose family had been here way longer than any of the Anglo people who migrated into Indian Territory and later Oklahoma.
Guyman, out in the Panhandle, is at the other end of the state from Heavener. Coronado passed through these parts. The region once belonged to Mexico.
Well, first of all, we have the largest population of Hispanics in the state of Oklahoma. A lot of people don't realize that. For one thing, because we're so far out here, I believe the largest percentage of any other city in Oklahoma. The school system itself is 72% Hispanic. We were doing a cultural exchange, the city of Guyman with the city of Foley, Alabama. And the person in charge is Malin Johnson, and she wanted to take the cultures of Oklahoma there. I was at the high school full time. She approached me and said, we want to take a Mexican folkloric dance group. We want them to be from the Panhandle because that's the part that actually flew under the flag of Mexico. We like what we've got. We've got a huge multicultural community, not just Hispanics, but we have a lot of other cultures as well in the Panhandle. So.
Most places you go to, whether it's a dental office, doctor's office, insurance company, banks, they all have bilingual staff.
In South OKC's Capitol Hill area, a similar optimism prevails.
My role with Neighborhood Alliance is to work with all the neighborhoods in South Oklahoma City, specifically with the South Central area, and most of the neighborhoods in this area, all the people that live in those areas are Hispanic. So my role is helping these neighborhoods to flourish and to have all these neighborhood associations working together to have a better city. También al mismo tiempo participando más en cualquier tipo de eventos, lo que es dar a conocer que nuestra cultura es algo que nosotros podemos compartir cuando al mismo tiempo adaptarnos a otra área y otro país en el que estamos viviendo.
Our work here is to build community, to give the neighborhood, the business owners the opportunity to come together and celebrate really what's good about South Oklahoma City. And that's the people, that's the culture, that's the hard work that people do to revitalize an area that had seen decline, the predominantly Hispanic neighborhood, a predominantly Hispanic culture. And so adopting Calle Dos Cinco celebrates the culture that is here, but the area is still historic Capitol Hill. So it's both. It's a blend of the old and the new, the two cultures, and Oklahoma can be proud of that.
¿no? Porque tenemos un poder de compra inmenso, y ahorita los números se lo están reflejando, ¿no? Entonces lo único que nos falta es nada más organizarnos y crear una asociación, que es lo que estamos tratando de hacer aquí en la 29, y aquí en Estados Unidos es la única forma en que podemos avanzar, ¿no? Tenemos que avanzar de la mano con la ciudad y buscar cambios.
In Tulsa, the state's second largest metro area, we visited with Yolanda Charnay. As we arrived at her office, a local TV station was interviewing her about the Donald Trump phenomenon.
The guy needs to take a civics lesson. He wants to do away with the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. You realize what that would take? Yesterday he was asked on Meet the Press How do you get your information for foreign affairs and defense and so forth? And he told the moderator, he says, oh, well, I listen to the shows. And we're sitting here on 21st Street where the Hispanic Chamber has its headquarters. And we're proud of that. That is a definite proof of the contribution of the Hispanic immigrant to this community. It was just old, the buildings were vacant and it just looked terrible. But with the migration to Tulsa, we started seeing shops pop up and businesses go in.
But we still need to change the way Oklahoma is going, thinking that the Hispanic community is only taking jobs, but the Hispanic community creates jobs. There's over 8,000 Hispanic-owned businesses in the state of Oklahoma. They're creating jobs. They're contributing to the economy, and they're not coming here to depend on the government so they can live. They come here to work, to make that American dream a possibility for them and their family. And that's something that the American people need to understand, that a lot of people say, well, they come here, they're taking their jobs and they're not paying taxes. Well, if they're renting, they're paying taxes. If they're consuming, they're paying taxes. If they're working, get a check, well, they're paying taxes. And some of that tax, maybe perhaps they're never going to see it. If they're getting paid by check, well, they're collecting Social Security. Then they will never see, if they're undocumented, they will never see that Social Security. And it's probably why the Social Security is still going on right now.
Y también ha sido un beneficio al pueblo también, mucho. Y aprendimos mucho de ellos. Yo tengo varios amigos aquí por este lado. Y es muy hermoso también aprender más de ellos también y platicar con ellos. Pero es una bendición tenerlos aquí en este país.
They've come to work and they've come to celebrate, participate, and create as well. Here we are at what used to be Oklahoma City's Crossroads Mall, a shopping center in serious decline before it was renamed Plaza Mayor and became a venue for small businesses and festivals. Where others bring athletic and musical talent, Carlos Tello brings to Oklahoma the style of the great Mexican muralist.
Uno de los que más me gusta es porque es muy popular con los niños que vienen aquí al Capitolio a ver todas las obras y ha llamado mucho la atención con los niños. Quizás por el personaje central que parece como un superhero, ¿no?
Not everyone understood or appreciated Theo's vision. A number of state leaders worried about what seemed to them a comic strip art form, or worse yet, something of communist inspiration. A struggle ensued, and a long process that involved 4 separate committees.
Duró 9 meses el trámite, o sea, no fue sencillo.
Theo prevailed in the end, emphasizing that the red, larger-than-life human form was related not to communism, but to the name Oklahoma itself, which in the Choctaw language means red people. A similar lack of understanding and a fair amount of prejudice led to the passage of the anti-immigrant House Bill 1804. Introduced by State Representative Randy Terrell, its provisions included making police officer agents of immigration enforcement and making it a crime to give aid to undocumented immigrants. Advocates like Terrell saw it as a simple call for the enforcement of laws. But what they overlooked was the human cost of taking such a hard line: racial profiling, the potential arrest of Good Samaritans, increased deportations, shattered families.
The complication of families being torn apart, and that every time someone is deported, it hurts a family and it hurts children, is something that I wanted to bring out. And it's happening. I mean, it's continuing to happen. I'm so frustrated that nothing is changing, that we seem to be at such a stalemate, and it's a political stalemate. You know, if people had political courage and political will, we could fix this problem.
And what were the state's fabled Sooners, if not the state's first undocumented immigrants?
And and I come very much from those pioneer people, but they were illegal immigrants. They came into Choctaw Nation in the late 1800s and were basically squatters, where they had no right to own land. And so they think of themselves as pioneers, but in fact, what else were they but undocumented immigrants?
Rilla Askew had not planned to write about the subject, but found herself haunted by a historical parallel. House Bill 1804, it seemed to her, was drawing on the same dark side of Oklahoma history and politics that she had written about in an earlier novel.
When the law first passed, I was extremely disturbed by it, and I felt enraged because I knew that, I'd written about the Tulsa race riot, and I understood very well what happens in a culture where one group of individuals is targeted. So I felt that this was exactly the same kind of thing, and I so deeply love Oklahoma and Oklahomans, and then to see us do what seemed to me so mean-spirited and so unnecessary, and so I just could not understand where it was coming from. I thought, who has created such a trouble that we need to have this law?
Kind of Ken imagines the chaos and the suffering that would have followed had House Bill 1804 taken full effect. The plot is set in motion when undocumented workers flee a police raid on a meat processing plant in Heavener. The main character, a white small-town Baptist, watches a world cave in around her as her father, a Good Samaritan, is arrested for harboring undocumented workers. In practice, enforcement of the law was uneven. In some counties, where police chose to not pursue law-abiding residents, life was quick to resume its normal pace. In other places, though, the picture was dire. In Heavener, reports of police abuse were serious enough to prompt a federal investigation. In Tulsa, Sheriff Stanley Glantz instituted a program to make his police force an arm of ICE, Immigration and Customs Inspection, and he went so far as to cite the financial benefits of doing so.
One that affected is the 287G program that the Tulsa County Sheriff's Office has. So what does that mean? The 287G, well, it's a program that makes 35 sheriff officers, makes them ICE agents. From all over the world that were calling me and saying, is this true? I mean, we are hearing that 10 to 15,000 people are leaving the state of Oklahoma. I said, they're not leaving the state of Oklahoma. They're leaving our area, the Tulsa area. It affected the businesses. There were a lot of businesses that closed. The schools, they were missing some students. The churches suffered. I think House Bill 1804 woke us up as a community.
Oklahoma's state legislature has only one Latino member at the moment, but that is beginning to change. Some, like Mary Sosa and Michael Brooks Jimenez, have launched vigorous political campaigns for office.
I remember on the Oklahoma City Gazette, on their cover, they had a story talking about a sleeping giant, talking about the sleeping giant of the Latino community because of the population increases, and when that sleeping giant is going to wake up. To try and get them engaged and have them have the experience of being able to volunteer on a campaign and to be able to learn a little bit about the people who represent them and how to be able to affect change. And so that was one little part that I was able to do to hopefully accelerate the Latino community's engagement in politics.
Lucha en busca que todo sea mejor, pues el mundo hoy merece ver tu lucha y que surja para el pueblo una canción donde todos seamos una misma voz, donde todos seamos una misma voz.
It was my last year of college, so we had somebody present a workshop and told the students that if they are undocumented, they cannot go on to pursue a higher education. So when everybody got done with their workshops after lunch, everybody gathered in the Kerr-McGee in the auditorium. And that was the first time I came out to a big group as undocumented. I told them if those statements were correct, I would not be standing in front of them. I was glad that, we clarified that with them. So yeah.
Carla Dueñas was also a dreamer. Her parents brought her to Oklahoma as a young child, fleeing the rising tide of violence that would make Juárez one of the most dangerous cities in the world.
Emigramos, ¿por qué? Porque la violencia nos rebasó, se nos arrebasó. Yo quería una mejor oportunidad de vida para mi hija.
Hacia el negro punto que hoy oscureció y en Juárez se instaló, sembrándole crueldad, infamia y gran dolor, la impunidad, la impunidad.
Y también que no había trabajo, o sea, teníamos que buscar a salir trabajo porque se habían cerrado muchas maquiladoras, ya no había fuentes de empleo.
Carla excelled in school, so much that she earned a coveted spot at a prestigious magnet school. There, she played the violin in the school orchestra and volunteered as a tutor. On the night of February 28, 2013, things took a tragic turn.
Una semana antes había habido una redada de migración en Tulsa. Entonces el concierto iba a ser en Tulsa y nosotros teníamos miedo de que yo fuera y me fuera a pasar algo a mí. La dejamos ir con confianza, pero ella nunca iba sola, o sea, nunca iba sola a los viajes. Y pues nosotros estábamos temerosos por cuestión de migración, o sea, nosotros no tenemos papeles. Y ya al exponernos de esa manera nosotros, pues era yo dejarlas solas a ellas.
Sometime after midnight came the shocking news. Carla and her friend, Deja Brown, both in the back seat, had been killed in the accident. These tragic deaths, of course, cannot be reduced to a single cause, but they are an example of the tragic consequences fear and the politics of fear can have. Just before her death, Carla had received a card known by its acronym DACA. Based on a 2012 executive order from President Obama, the card has given countless young people freedom from the fear of deportation and a chance to move ahead. Other dreamers have benefited from DACA and have gone on to achieve the things that Carla would have achieved.
With this DACA, it gives them the opportunity to be able to apply at different jobs. So yes, it's a very positive experience for us in this community. Before this, it was saying, well, even if I get a college degree, I'm not going to do anything. I can't get a job anywhere.
So being able to receive DACA opened a lot more doors. Now I'm able to work. I'm able to have my current internship. So many different doors opened once I received DACA. I was able to receive the Claire Looper Scholarship, which helped me pay for the majority of my school fees and tuition here at Oklahoma City University.
Like all past immigrant groups that have come to make up the USA, Oklahoma Latinos have come to participate and assimilate.
O sea, vienen a trabajar, no vienen a depender de un gobierno. Ellos vienen a trabajar y construir su vida aquí en un país ajeno, pero lo hacen de ellos.
I want Hispanics included in everything that's good, and we are part of this history. We're part of this state, and wanted something documented to say, aquí estamos y no nos vamos, right?